Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are putting away the investment tips and grabbing the rule book. We're going deep into the operational system, the mandatory plumbing of the Indian securities market.
Exactly.
We're not talking about which company to buy. We're talking about the critical, often invisible rules that govern how you're allowed to buy it, hold it, and eventually transfer it.
That's right. Our listeners shared a pretty dense stack of regulatory and operational sources, and our mission today is Cure Knowledge Translation.
Right.
We're turning that compliance jargon into practical, sticky insights, focusing on the mandatory stuff that ensures security and, legitimacy for every single transaction.
Operational rules can feel like bureaucratic quicksand, so to keep us grounded, you suggested a fantastic framework. Let's set that up.
Yeah, I think we need it because the system is complex.
Hmm.
Think of managing your Indian investments as, say, running a high-security library.
Okay, I like that. A library.
This library holds your most valuable assets, and there are strict rules for identity, storage, access, everything. Every step is about proving who you are and ensuring the integrity of the ledger.
I love that. So let's apply that right away. If the investment world is our library, the KYC, the Know Your Customer process, that's my library card application.
Precisely. That's you establishing your identity, and your PAN, the permanent account number. That's your unique national ID that grants you access to the whole system.
And the DEMET account.
That's your secure digital bookshelf where all your holdings are safely stored. So we need rules for everything, from getting the card to passing those books on to your heir.
That frame makes so much sense. Okay, let's start with who the players are. Section 1. The players and the entry gate.
Okay, so we basically have two main constituencies. First, you've got your individual investors.
Residents, NRIs, minors, that sort of thing.
Yep, they're typically investing smaller ticket sizes, they're geographically spread out, and it's their own money. It's personal.
And then the other side of the coin, the institutional investors,
Mhm.
the big funds.
And they are fundamentally different because their decisions are driven by a formal documented process. Their board or trustees have to authorize everything according to specific guidelines. The rigor is just much higher.
Now, what's fascinating here is SEBI's introduction of the accredited investor concept. This feels like it implies that wealth grants you special access to riskier products.
It does, and that's the central point. Accredited investors, individuals, trusts, who need specific high net worth or income criteria. They get access to products suited for a higher inclination for risk.
So the regulator's intent isn't to be elitist.
No, not at all. It's recognizing that certain complex products require a high degree of financial capacity and sophistication. It's a suitability threshold.
Okay, so the regulator's basically saying, if you meet these wealth requirements, we assume you can absorb potential losses, making you suitable for more complex stuff.
Exactly. Suitability is the key word. And before you make any investment, you have to read the terms of offer. That document outlines everything: eligibility, minimums, maximums, all of it.
And I imagine there are some surprising exclusions in those terms.
Oh, absolutely. The source material points out that certain pension plans, for example, offered by mutual funds, they often have mandatory upper age restrictions.
So even if you're a high net worth individual, you might be excluded just because of your age?
Exactly. Your life stage can be a barrier.
All right, shifting gears to the application process itself, we have to talk about how technology has streamlined things, specifically with ASBA.
ASBA was a true operational breakthrough. Application supported by blocked amount. Instead of sending money off and hoping for an allotment, the money is just blocked in the investor's own bank account.
And the funds are only released if and when you get the allotment.
Precisely. So if I apply for 1 billion rupees in shares but only get 10,000, the rest of my funds are immediately unblocked. It cuts down risk and friction immensely,
And then UPI got integrated into this.
which made it even easier for retail investors. SEBI fully integrated UPI payment within the ASBA facility, leveraging those instant payment rails for high-security transactions.
That seamless tech brings us right into Section 2, the foundation of Security PAN and KYC. This is the bedrock of our whole library system.
It is. The permanent account number is your single identification number. It's the mandatory anchor that ties your investment activity to your tax identity.
And it's for so much more than just stocks, right? The sources say PAN is mandatory for things like fixed deposits or insurance premiums if they're over 50,000 rupees.
That's the threshold, yeah, 50,000. It basically brings the entire middle class under the PAN umbrella.
And this whole KYC process, it's really driven by one piece of legislation, isn't it?
It is. It's all in compliance with the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, PMLA. The core objective is verification to establish the identity of all investors and the legitimacy of their funds.
Okay, so the mandatory fields are straightforward: name, address, PAN. But let's zoom in on a crucial operational detail in joint accounts: the significance of the first holder.
This is so vital for listeners to grasp. In a joint investment, everything, payouts like dividends, tax benefits, all official correspondence, it's all directed solely to the name of the first holder.
So if the second holder is the one who needs that income stream, they're out of luck, operationally speaking.
They're going to have complications for sure. The first holder is the primary interface.
And speaking of interfacing, before an advisor can even suggest anything, they have to conduct risk profiling. Why is this mandatory?
It's the ultimate suitability test. It assesses both the investor's emotional willingness to take risk and, more importantly, their financial ability to take that risk.
So that assessment becomes the basis for everything that follows.
It forms the foundational basis for selecting suitable options. You can't recommend something that could bankrupt a client no matter how bullish they feel, It's a regulatory friction point.
That sets us up perfectly for Section 3, where compliance goes fully digital. Let's talk about KRAs, KYC registration agencies.
KRAs are a huge efficiency play. They're SEBI-registered entities that act as a central repository for KYC records. So investors don't have to keep repeating the process with every single broker or fund house.
Yeah. Do it once and you're done.
That's the idea. The KRA status becomes the single source of truth.
And the verification itself is now super high-tech. We've got e-sign and the mandatory video in-person verification, or VIPV.
VIPV is the high security standard now. It's a mandatory step where the intermediary conducts a live video call.
So you're on a video call showing your documents.
You're showing your documents, you're answering random questions, and the whole thing is done in an environment that is, and this is key, tamper-proof and time-stamped.
Let's talk about that tamper-proof element. Why the live call with timestamps? What does that prevent?
It significantly reduces fraud. A physical signature can be forged, right, or backdated. A VIPV recording requires you to be there, live, holding your ID, answering questions. The timestamp proves it happened at the point of application. It makes the whole thing auditable.
Incredible rigor. But amidst all this, there's a small exception for micro-investments.
Yes, the regulator recognized the barrier to entry. So there's a specific PAN exemption, but it's very restricted. It only applies to individual investors for investments up to 50,000 rupees per year per fund house.
So it's like a starter library card that doesn't require the full national ID. How are these people tracked?
They get a PAN-exempt KYC reference number, a PKRN. It's SEBI's way of saying, look, we still need to track your activity, but we won't require the highest level of ID for very small investments.
Okay. Now, on the opposite end of that, let's talk about the rule against third-party payments. Why is this so strict? What if my parents want to gift me an investment?
It is, and generally that payment would be rejected instantly. The money trail has to be clean and directly traceable from the registered investor's account.
Because of PMLA again.
All because of PMLA. Any deviation is seen as a potential attempt to mask the true source of the funds. There are narrow exceptions, but they require a ton of extra paperwork.
Right. So now that we know who the verified investor is, let's move to where they keep their assets. Section 4. Our digital bookshelf, the DMAT account, is managed by a depository.
A depository is just an institution that holds securities in electronic form. Think of it like a bank, but for securities instead of funds. India has two, an SDL and CDSL.
And when we convert a physical certificate into a digital entry, that's dematerialization. The securities become data.
Crucially, they become fungible. This is a core concept. It means once they're electronic, they don't have distinctive numbers. One electronic share of a company is identical to any other.
If they don't have unique numbers, how do I know my specific shares haven't been mixed up with someone else's?
Because ownership is a ledger entry, not a physical item. The unique identity belongs to the asset itself, not the unit. And that identity is the ISIN, the International Securities Identification Number.
Ah, the 12-character code. So the ISIN defines what the asset is, and my account number defines who owns it.
You've got it. So when you submit your physical certificate, the issuer has to certify it, and then what happens to the paper?
What does happen to it?
The issuer mutilates the certificate. It's physically destroyed to confirm the asset is now only an electronic entry. That prevents duplicate claims.
What's the most common reason for that process to fail?
Honestly, simple human error. A signature mismatch between the form and the certificate, or a slightly different name spelling. The system is designed to reject any ambiguity at all.
And one important detail. No stamp duty is payable on dematerialization transactions.
which is a significant saving. It's a regulatory nudge toward digitizing the whole market.
Okay, let's shift to Section 5. Agency, authority, and life events. Starting with the power of attorney, or POA, the permission slip, to let someone else access your digital bookshelf.
A critical legal document. It's used heavily by non-resident investors or people who have brokers manage their assets while they're abroad.
But that authority is not absolute. What are the big restrictions on a POA holder?
Well, the restrictions really define the boundaries. The POA holder cannot appoint a nominee. That's a decision reserved for the account owner. And critically, they cannot open or close a bank or demat account.
Because that involves ultimate financial liability.
Exactly. And that has to be tied to the actual owner.
Okay. Moving to asset maintenance. Let's talk about pledging using your holdings as collateral for a loan.
Right. When you pledge securities, the lender records a lien against them in the demat system. This stops you from selling them. If you default on the loan, the lender can invoke the lien and sell the securities to get their money back.
And finally, the critical life event. Transmission versus nomination. What happens in a joint account when someone passes away?
The rule of survivorship is paramount here. The right of the joint holders supersedes the right of the nominee.
So the assets go to the surviving joint holders first.
As owners, yes. The nominee only comes into the picture if all the joint holders are deceased.
And we have new flexibility coming in for single holders, which is a huge deal for succession planning.
Yes. Effective March 2025, you'll be able to nominate up to 10 people to a single account. That allows for much more detailed estate planning.
That brings us to Section 6, our special operational categories, starting with NRIs. What's the single most important factor for them?
Repatriability, no question. The ability to move funds out of India depends entirely on the source account. Money from an NRE or FCNR account is fully repatriable.
But if they invest money they earned in India through an NRO account, the rules tighten.
Significantly. Proceeds from NRO accounts are limited to a maximum of $1 million per financial year for repatriation. It's a guardrail to manage capital flight.
And if an NRI wants to trade shares actively, they're forced into the Portfolio Investment Scheme, or PINS.
PINS is mandatory for trading on Indian stock exchanges, and it comes with very specific restrictions. An NRI can only have one NRE PIS account and one NRO PIS account.
And they can't trade everything?
No. They're not allowed to trade in currency or commodity segments, and they are definitely not allowed to short sell stocks.
And there's a limit on how much of one company they can own, too.
Yes. An individual NRI can't purchase more than 5% of the paid-up capital of a company. It's all about preventing destabilizing foreign maneuvers on specific stocks.
Okay, now for the operational crisis many families face, the minor's account status change.
This is a classic compliance trigger that catches so many people off guard. A minor's account is unique. It can't have joint holders. The guardian operates it for them.
But the day the minor turns 18,
Everything changes. Immediately.
Yeah.
The account is instantly frozen for operation by the guardian.
let's put a human stake on that. So a family sets up SIPs, systematic investment plans, for 15 years.
And they think they're on autopilot. The immediate consequence is that all those standing instructions, including the SIPs, are suspended the moment that child turns 18.
Wow, so the investments just stop.
They stop.
Yeah.
And they don't restart until the newly turned major completes a brand new KYC and bank attestation. That operational friction can lead to months of missed investment opportunities.
It really requires proactive planning. Okay, let's end with the platforms that counter some of this friction, like BSE Star or NSE NMF2.
These are centralized stock exchange platforms for buying and selling mutual fund units. They route transactions through the clearing corporation, which basically eliminates counterparty risk for the investor.
And for investment advisors, they provide a huge benefit.
They do. An IA can see a client's entire mutual fund portfolio in one place. But even here, compliance rules. The agreement must include a summary of the MITC, the most important terms and conditions.
So what does this entire deep dive into the mandatory plumbing mean for you, the learner? We've covered everything from the 50,000 rupee PAN threshold to the PIN-S limits and the minor status freeze.
It means that every single one of those minute details, the VIPV recording, the strict rejection of third-party payments, it exists to build a framework of trust that is auditable, secure, and fast.
So all these rules are why the market is stable enough to handle billions of transactions.
That's the idea. The high volume of rules creates the stability.
The operational rigor is the true stabilizer. So the key takeaway is that even seemingly small administrative details are crucial operational gates you have to manage.
Indeed. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, considering the mandatory requirement for VIPV, the live video verification, and the strict rules stopping advisors from ever touching client funds, we've shifted trust from people to technology,
Hmm.
which raises an important question for you to mull over. What are the ultimate unseen costs or benefits of this relentless push for digital identity verification, relying on timestamps and facial recognition, versus the old, slower, but maybe more human reliance on a simple physical signature?
Are we trading human trust for technological certainty? That's a great thought to end on. Thanks for guiding us through the operational labyrinth today.
My pleasure.
And to you, the learner, thank you for dining deep with us. We'll see you next time.